Hello, good morning, and thanks for tuning in to blockchain.biz. This is a weekly news roundup. It is Friday, the 5th of July. I'm your host, Jenny Jordan. With me is co-host John Jordan. Hi, John. How are you doing?
Hello.
Good.
See.
Hello.
You don't have a new hat, but you're rocking some new merch.
Yeah. That's my old favorite hat. But thanks to Animaker Brands for sending me some smashing merch.
A hoodie. Show us the back. Give us a twirl.
The back. Yeah, I'm not so sure about the back actually. Like, what is it?
It's
drinking wine, eating baguettes.
It's a Chinese style cap, but decked out with a beret, a baguette, and drinking red wine. So
yeah,
a French Chinese Mocaverse cap.
Promoting kind of Web3 values. Is that what I'm imagining?
Funny.
Anyway, let's dive into this week's news. So, sort of overall, there's been a UK election, a change of prime minister and government. There's been a crash in crypto prices again. Sort of gotten used to this volatility by now, but with that, obviously, also a big drop off for gaming tokens. Although we should mention that you are currently working on the report, looking exclusively at gaming tokens and giving some context to what's actually been happening in the last 6 months there, rather than sort of seeing week on week.
Yeah, although it's annoying when you have very big changes just at the end of a quarter.
Yeah.
I spent the last week tabulating all this data, which is, I mean, obviously it's always wrong, like the day after, but normally it's not wrong by sort of 10%, which of course, just even today, it's down 10%. So, but I mean, yeah, you're right. The trend in Q2 wasn't good anyway, so this is just sort of bookending a not good trend. But anyway, there's plenty of other things to talk about as well. So.
And on the Web3 gaming front, Immutable has come out, the biggest gainer in our research this week. In the month of June, basically, it has increased its total user wallets with 30%. It's up from 3 million to 4 million. But sort of more significantly, it's also gained a lot of active user wallets. So active users, basically, it's come from 180,000 at the start of the month to just over 300,000. And now they claim, I think, even 450,000 was the latest figure I saw.
Really?
Yeah, 420 or something. So that keeps on going up.
I thought it stopped going up.
No, hang on. 300. Sorry, I'm getting this wrong. 350,000, I think.
Okay.
I might be wrong on that. That's the latest figure I saw. Okay. I've not actually looked at the sort of raw data on that. Anyway, either way, it's a big gain for Immutable, who is currently busy rolling out sort of live games on its zkEVM mainnet.
Yeah.
It's got this the main quest campaign where sort of users who sign up to the Immutable passport can claim gems. What those gems will be useful for in the future, we don't really know. If you hold their IMX token, you are eligible to claim even more gems. So lots going on for them in terms of sort of trying to grow their user base and sort of use that as a funnel for people to discover the games on the platform. They've currently got Hunters on Chain, which is sort of the most active in terms of users, and they've obviously got this Boom token airdrop, which we've covered in some depth already. They got Guild of Guardians, and they have what's it called? The Bubble. What's it called?
The Bubble.
Anyway, yeah, Bubble.
They've got Bubble thing. Yeah, I think. Think
Bubble Rangers. Bubble Rangers.
I don't think that's doing very much. I mean, I think Boomlands seem to be doing sort of quite a lot of activity. Guild of Guardians, they actually announced some download figures. So they've done 500,000 downloads on Google Play. I think it was 620,000 monthly active users, which wasn't enormous. And it seems to have this slightly weird thing saying, our Web 2, our Web 2 features are too good, which sort of suggested that people weren't doing any Web 3 stuff, which is sort of seems to have been the figures I looked at seem to be very low levels of Web 3 activity. But there seem to have a decent number of people playing it, and they've put out a big update this week, so lots of features around guilds and stuff like that. So we'll see how that sort of goes on. But it's yeah, it's interesting. And certainly,
Well, that's obviously going to be games' different approaches as well. Some games, some Web3 games might still be more interested in first gaining a big Web2 sort of Web3 audience, and then sort of slowly introducing them to Web3, whereas other games will be more we're a sole Web3 game from the start, from the get-go. Here's our Web3 features we want you to integrate with to get the most out of this game.
And I think, the Guild of Guardians has, NFTs and all that sort of stuff, but it's, the web, there's not a lot of, you almost have to know the Web3 stuff if you want and get involved with it. It's a very Web 2.1, and I think a lot of games going through the app stores tend to take that approach. We've always got about NFL Rivals. I mean, it's exactly the same. It's basically a Web 2 game with some blockchain stuff if you understand blockchain or if you get really deep into the game. It's not designed as a blockchain game from that point of view, and that's definitely Guild of Guardians. And Boomland's different because basically you're collecting a crypto token by competing. Everyone in that sense is sort of on chain because they're collecting a proper cryptocurrency, and when they open chests, they're minting NFTs. So the more interesting thing I think is that we have started to see quite a lot of trading of Boomland NFTs as well. So actually, I look at it every day, and it's either Guild of Guardians or Boomland is either one or two. Yeah, they're always one or two. It's not an enormous amount. It's what would it be, about $100,000 worth a day? But that's equally, that wasn't.
In terms of the Guild of Guardians, it used to be their avatars that were the most traded. Is that still the case?
Yeah, we're not quite sure. There's a lot of trading of these avatars, which you can actually use in game now, but they have no game function. So people seem to think there's sort of some wash trading going on there, or people are trading those because they get some gem rewards for trading NFTs. I'm not entirely convinced, but that's a little bit odd. But I mean, in a sense, part of the point of having ownership of game assets is people trade them, and there may be reasons other than functional game reasons why you might be doing that. But it's, I guess, a general positive sign that those two games in particular are being played by tens of thousands of people every day, and there is some volume of sort of trading happening as well. So those are the reasons that Immutable's going up.
And in terms of the heroes or champions or in the in-game characters in Guild of Guardians, if you get them as an NFT, obviously they have the ability to be stronger and get to higher levels. But what's the enhancement of having an NFT in Hunters on Chain? What sort of benefits does that give you?
Well, pretty much, not quite everything, but pretty much all the hunters are NFTs. They're just different they have different earning potential. So when you start playing the game, you get what they call a trial hunter, which is an NFT, but you have to play for 14 days within the month of this trial period for them to mint it, and then you get it for free. But it's sort of, in terms of earning, it's sort of useless. I mean, you earn a couple of gems per game, whereas with the premium ones, you earn 1,000 gems of that, 1,000 gems per match. So the factor is 3 orders of magnitude. So that's the sort of the mechanic there. With Boomland, it's pretty much everything. The hunters are NFTs. Then you have shards, which you use to level them up. Their NFTs. You have artifacts, which are sort of permanent boosts that you sort of attach to the hunter. Their NFTs. There's 2 tokens, BGem at the moment, and then there's Boom one, which is coming. They're all cryptocurrencies. So the whole thing is sort of much more crypto native. From that point of view, that sort of almost everything you do is a blockchain sort of asset.
Now we've seen with Pixels and more recently with Pirate Nation that bots tend to be really liking these sort of games. Do you know anything about the rate of bots in Hunters on Chain? No,
I don't actually. That's a good point. I mean, it's slightly different in the sense that it is a direct action game. So basically, you have to move your character around on the screen or mouse if you're playing by browser. So you move it around, and when you take your finger off the touchscreen or stop moving, then it attacks. So that's the basic mechanic. So it's designed as a mobile game. So I'm sure you could sort of build bots to go around and do that, but it is more complicated than just. I think probably for pixels and that sort of stuff. And the other sort of thing is you earn BGem, so you can get BGem, and that opens chests, and that gives you more NFT. So there is definitely a sort of a play to earn option where you're getting BGem and then opening the rarer chests might give you an NFT you can sell, but it's not a direct. The BGem token itself can't be sold at the moment, and it can't be transferred to Boom, which is sort of the sort of upper level token, which that will happen. So at the moment you could bot it, but you're sort of limited, and each hunter has a energy, a maximum amount of energy. So if you really wanted to bot it, you'd have to buy, to begin with, a bit like Axie back in the day, you'd have to go and buy loads of NFTs to have the energy to bot it. And they do have anti-bot measures in there as well. I mean, everyone has anti-bot measures in there, but I think it's a game that is, for a couple of reasons, the way the gameplay works and the way currently the earning works, that people will be less likely to bot than other games. Certainly, as you mentioned, pirate nations, because they're in a second season of their play to airdrop campaign that was very successful first time round. So it looks like, and that's to a degree a game where you can easily bot some elements of it, because some of them are just sort of time-based missions, although that has a time factor as well. I think with Pirate Nation, it was more like sort of denial of service sort of thing, where just loads of bots were trying to sort of get into the system and sort of overwhelming their infrastructure, rather than, Pixels was a slightly different case, I think. I
was a bit surprised actually. This is the first time it happened that I was told I couldn't play due to a queue to Pirate Nation. It's never happened before. Yeah. Anyway, so on that note, you've been looking at some depth at Pixels, and the release of Chapter 2 clearly made a big difference. And they've been fairly transparent about their communication here. They've been talking about how they really want to get rid of rid of bots and sort of activity on that front. And with the release last month of Chapter 2, they clearly saw that to some extent those measurements are working, because they did lose 69% of their DAUWs. It's gone back up a bit since, but talk us through sort of what's happened there.
Yeah. So as we sort of wrote this week, Pixels peaked at over 1 million daily active unique wallets. We always know when games get that big, we always know for every game there's a proportion of bots. What tends to happen is, obviously, it costs money to run these big bot farms. So you're looking for, you're not doing it you're not looking to inflate a game's user base for their benefit. You're looking to extract some sort of value. So obviously, if it's going to cost you $500 a day to run a bot farm, then you need to be somehow extracting that more than $500, or you don't do it. I mean, that's the bottom line on it. So in a sense, games that get heavily botted, that is a sort of measure of the fact they have some sort of successful economy, in the sense that people want to extract from it. But then obviously what happens is it gets to an equilibrium point where there's so many bots in there that the economy sort of breaks down, and people are just extracting, and the token price sort of goes down, and real people stop playing. And all game developers, blockchain game developers, are well aware of this and have various measures to sort of look at bots. And the problem obviously is the harder you stamp down on bots, the more real people you're going to sort of trap. It's a bit like, I don't know, it's a good analogy. It's sort of a bit like tax evasion. If everyone's like, oh, we've got to stop these people evading taxes, then you sort of have to have more tax people looking at more bank accounts, and they're going to, find more people and have these more investigations in people who aren't doing anything wrong. So I think people tend to try and find a balance on how can we obviously stop obvious bots, but we don't want to, your support costs go up because you're banning people who are real people, and they get really annoyed if they get banned and they're not doing anything wrong. But obviously, so the best way of doing it is fundamentally changing how the game works to some degree, and that's what the Chapter 2 of Pixels did. They wanted to make the game less extractive in terms of the pixel token, so they, given the rewards, basically making sure the rewards go to higher level players who are committed, who are playing the game in a committed way, rather than people just sort of rocking in. But that's sort of like a dynamic that every game has gone through. So I did a graph of looking at what happened to Splinterlands, who this is in summer of 2022, did it exactly the same thing. I mean, we both played Splinterlands quite a lot back then, and they changed their reward structure, so people had to own a lot more cards, and you had a power sort of gating system based on the level of cards, your collection of cards, how much it was worth. And again, they saw like 89% drop of their sort of high level audience in a couple of days. Alien Worlds hasn't had a massive drop off quite like that, but it had a 43% drop off when it did some sort of anti-bot stuff as well. So we sort of know these big games, that are successful, get a lot of bots, and then they sort of stamp down on them, and then it's sort of how they deal with the next phase. So I guess that's the thing for Pixels. I mean, they're much more open about it, I think, than most other companies.
Yeah.
So
and I guess what you pointed out is also sort of, whereas Splinterlands and Alien Worlds haven't really gained back
the
audience they had, Pixels is still sort of thriving in that regard and has grown fairly quickly and has the potential of sort of recovering, if that's the word to use.
Yeah, I mean, there is just Pixels just got much bigger. I mean, so I mean, at a peak, Alien Worlds and Splinterlands got up to about 500,000, but that was like for a day, whereas Splinterlands has been around 1 million for a couple of months. It's just sort of bigger, and I think they are, knowing a little bit of the Splinterlands team and a little bit of the Alien Worlds team, I would say the Pixels team are just a little bit more adapted to sort of building fast, iterating fast. And I just think they're probably the market is 2 years on to being more mature in terms of some of the sort of technology it's using, and obviously their sort of key thing is they're on Ronin. So Ronin is gonna, I think it's got a lot more games coming out, so it's going to be generally a attractive sort of place where more people are coming in. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, Pixels as well is a sort of an odd game in the sense it's a bit like Farmville in the way it sort of has these farming elements, but also it's very social, and people might sort of rock in as a sort of more community thing than an actual game that you're playing to get something out of. So we'll see. And the other sort of key thing that Pixels had that these other games didn't have was this this monthly VIP status that you have to pay in the token for. So obviously you might earn the token in the game, and it might be free from that point of view. But with Splinterlands and Alien Worlds, obviously you could buy the token to sort of progress faster, but there wasn't this sort of fixed monetization game. So even though Alien Worlds sort of user base has gone down quite a lot, we'll have to see the impact on the sort of the VIP subscription thing, which was doing about $2 million a month in revenue for them, in their token.
Pixels, you mean, not Alien Worlds?
Sorry, Pixels, yeah. So that's a sort of quite a big difference. In a sense, it looked like, and when I spoke to Luke, the CEO, whenever it was a month ago, he was saying they weren't far off. They didn't feel they were far off of sort of breaking even, and partly because they're a small team, so their overheads are low. But that's fundamentally, from a business point of view, is you want to have the basis of not losing money every month, because that's unsustainable in the long term. So you need to, once you've got to break even, then you can sort of think about how you sort of scale in future. But you need to get to break even.
They've really been using that to their strength, haven't they? They're a really small, scrappy team with lots of sort of side hobbies and stuff. If it doesn't work out, Luke can always go and sort of swipe the floors of a sailboat or something, and
put them
100-mile runs in the mountains.
But I think particularly on days when crypto prices are going down, and everyone who owns anything, the value of that goes down. Whether it's you own these things directly, or whether you just own an NFT that's valued in ETH and ETH dropped 10%. I mean, no one feels great on those days. And I think the people who come out the other side of, I mean, maybe I don't know, not quite in a bear market yet, but obviously feels pretty bearish sentiment wise. The people who come out the other side are sort of the little cockroaches who just aren't going to die. They're going to keep going. If they haven't got any money, that's going to be their weekend job. They are sort of committed to the cause. Whereas the big VC backed companies, once they run out of money, people, maybe rightly just like, well, I can go and get another job somewhere else, being paid 100 grand a year, like I need to be paid, and there's nothing wrong with that. But often the innovation tends to come, and actually, just Splinterland's team were like that, the Alien Worlds team were like that, Sky Mavis back in the day were like that. They were just these little committed enthusiasts, not totally inexperienced in making games. All those teams, none of them had made a game before, but technically, loved blockchain and sort of got on with it. So those are the sort of teams that I, sort
No, exactly. It really is like a defining factor whether you are committed by financial gains or whether you're committed to the cause for sort of other reasons.
Yep.
Anyway, on talking about Alien Worlds, the Coco, the developer, announced a new AI. They launched it actually, a new generative AI tool called Lynx, which is only available currently anyway in the Discord and in the sort of various community Discords. And with this, players of Alien Worlds and I suppose other users can create sort of their own story narratives based on the Alien World lore. So, and then they'll be encouraged with different rewards and grants to sort of expand the story.
Yeah, they seem to be doing I've not used it yet, I must admit, but they're sort of doing a big push. They've got this sort of UGC, this large language model based on their lore, which is written by a fairly well-known guy who writes these sort of things, and then you can sort of use that to build your own. And then they have this thing called tokenized lore, where it's sort of a bit like a DAO type thing. And obviously, Alien Worlds actually comes from a sort of DAO sort of background. So the developer, so they've been very strong on DAOs anyway, and now they're having this idea that you can sort of vote on the sort of bits of lore. So they've had this big initiative to sort of build out the backstory of the sort of the universe of Alien Worlds, which is to some degree
it really aligns kind of with
game.
General community-based development, how they sort of built the game from the community
Absolutely.
up. Yat Siu did an interview this week with the Cryptonomist, which I sort of caught my attention, where he said he expects the next million new users in Web3 users will be coming thanks to gaming on Telegram, ton games of tap to earn, kind of simple mini games. And I think he's right. I think we're sort of seeing that already. But more kind of interestingly, kind of how does this really drive mass adoption, and is that sort of mass adoption that the industry kind of needs or wants? Because these games are clearly not sort of deep MMORPGs or AAA shooters. They are as simple as it gets, really. But Telegram has done a good job of getting people to, they claim 500 million of their users are currently playing games on the platform. I mean, that's what I think.
But it's funny though, because it obviously goes back to us talking about bots, and it's sort of like these are, Telegram's channels are run by bots often. I mean, the text channels are, when you go in, it goes, a bot runs this. So in a sense, maybe that's sort of leaning into the fact that and it's something I sort of agree with, that you should maybe have bots as a native element in your game. You should sort of encourage bots, but you should think about designing the game that the bots don't run the whole thing, or if they do, why would human players want to play in a game that's run by bots? So there is that thing about Telegram where obviously it's a massive audience, it's going really well. The Ton coin underlying the Ton blockchain is been top 10 crypto. So there is a lot of growth there, and I know a lot of companies are sort of looking or actually are actively building in there. Gamey one we've spoken about, the one, an Animoca one.
Just stick that in now as well. Mighty Bear Games.
Mighty Bear Games,
I mean, you spoke to CEO Simon Davis, didn't you, about that?
So people are definitely looking at it as a sort of UA marketing channel. I guess the big unknown is, can you find people on Telegram and then actually stick them in your sort of game, because you can't retain people very well on Telegram. So once you've got them, maybe you can bring them across to a better game that will retain them better and allow you to monetize them more in some way. Build a business with them. And that's the really unknown thing. And it's sort of interesting. I was looking at some retention data yesterday, and going back to Pixels, the first like 6,000 wallets that played Pixels on Ronin, like about 50%. So they started playing in October. 50% of those wallets are still playing. 9 months on. I mean that is an insane retention mechanic, and obviously those people would be very committed to Pixels. So there's what we call a golden cohort, because they're miles more retaining than the other ones. But even looking at some of the other sort of month retention for Pixels, the first month retention is like 50%, and even, I think even like month 7, some of them were like 25% retention, which is pretty insane. But that's sort of one thing we'd expect from blockchain games, where people may be buying assets and earning a token, so they might be sort of coming in to sort of farm that. And but with sort of Telegram games, I think the retention numbers are just very, very different. You probably lose 90% of your audience in day one. So that's the big struggle. And generally that's all. Everything. If it's very easy to get a lot of users, then they tend not to be. The problem tends to be finding the good users. So it's a little bit like, oh, here's a new shiny thing, and everyone goes, oh, new shiny thing, runs towards it. But the new shiny thing has its own problems. So.
Yeah, it sort of also means that you kind of have to have new games, an influx of new games all the time. And we've seen they've gone from, what did you have, 120 games to less than 2 weeks ago. That was then up to 140 next time we looked, and now it's up to 167, might even be sort of up more than that since.
And that's the other thing.
That could be an approach that works for them. It's clearly not works for everybody, as we saw with Wemix this week, who announced that they are changing approach. They announced last year, they were very proud, they were going to have onboard 100 games, or they had onboarded 100 games to that platform, which a lot of those titles have just been sitting on their platform, seen as coming soon, and nothing has happened. They've discontinued a bunch of those games, probably 20 games of those now, I would think. I don't know, I have to go and look at the data. But anyway, a large bunch of those games have been discontinued. And they have now changed approach and say we're going to go for more high quality games, fewer games, try a completely different strategy in that regard. So it's just interesting to see sort of how these platforms are taking very different approaches, depending, I suppose, on which sort of player audience you realize you can sort of retain and what's working for you. Right, on that note, I think we're going to finish off. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's fairly waffly news roundup, and we shall see you all next week. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Goodbye.